Okay, so I'm going to have a go at doing a cold call for a company you may have heard of called Lovable. I don't really know anything about Lovable. Of course, I know what they do, but I've never solved them and I have no context on how that will be done. So I'm going to use a tool called Overvue, which is a cold call simulator. And what it does is it lets you clone realistic and accurate buyer personas based on your company. So I'm going to run you through that, how it works. I'm going to choose first and foremost my username. We'll go for Loverman124, claim username. Boom. Now what I'll do is I'll put in the lovable.com and it's going to go away and figure out what Lovable does and all the information it needs to know. Should take 2 to 3 minutes, but I'll pause until that's done. Of course, we have some research now, company overview, so on and so forth. I can edit that if I wanted to, but I'm just going to leave it. So I'm going to go ahead and just click continue. Now it's going to go ahead and figure out if I was calling for Lovable, what are some job titles or personas that I might typically call to? So let's see what comes back. Of course, we have product manager, startup founder. These all look good. I think I will go for startup founder. Let's go for product manager, actually. A bit of a bigger company. And then when we continue, it's going to start building out the engine of what that product manager cares about. So we see we have Wade Cruz from Innovate Solutions. And we see here his speech style, the pain points, job responsibilities. I can edit these, but I'll leave them default and we'll head to difficulty. So here I can make it really rude, really chatty, really receptive, or really patient. I'm going to leave it default, but you can kind of combine these as you please. Now it's going to go ahead and create the bot, and we'll do the first call to Wade Cruz.
Hello?
Hey, Wade, it's Jack over at Lovable. Look, I know I'm an interruption, but do you mind if I grab half a minute, let you know exactly why I called, and then you can let me know if it's relevant or not?
Yeah, I mean, I guess. What's up?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Real quick, Wade, have you heard of Lovable in the past by any chance?
I don't think so, no.
No worries. I guess we're not as popular as I thought. But look, the reason I wanted to call you specifically, Wade, is when I speak to product managers at startups, they often tell me they're pretty frustrated with how long it takes to get their product ideas into actual working software. Either they're burning months just to get an MVP launched. They're spending 50 to 100K or more hiring developers before actually validating product market fit. Or they're stuck in like endless back and forth with dev agencies who don't really get the vision. Real quick, we actually work with companies of that nature to build full stack web applications using literally just AI and completely natural language. So that like a product manager can go from concept to actual working prototype in days instead of months and like validate those ideas super fast. And of course, like save 6 figures or more on development costs before they even know if their product will work. Wade, my guess is that you've probably got it handled, but I just wanted to see if you'd be open to hearing more, if for nothing else, just so you know what's out there.
That's a pretty bold claim, actually. I mean, we're always looking for ways to, accelerate our feature development and prototyping. We've got a lot of pressure to deliver, and engineering resources are, you know, they're always tight. But I'm pretty skeptical about AI tools beyond like simple demos. How does it actually like practically work? And how do you ensure like the quality of the code and the scalability of the applications that you're building with AI?
Yeah, really good questions, Wade. Happy to dive in. In terms of how it works, I know it sounds pretty wild to believe, but it's literally completely human language. So you'd kind of type in a really detailed spec in natural human language of kind of what you want to build, and then it goes away and builds a prototype, and then maybe some feature is not quite how you wanted it to be, and then again you can fix those bugs with human language, which is super useful for product managers and product team in general, especially if they're not kind of developmentally inclined, should we say. In terms of kind of the code based stuff, like it's been trained on hundreds and hundreds of thousands of different pieces of software and kind of code bases. So it takes the best practices from there.
Okay, so it's a natural language interface. I get that. But, how does it handle complex business logic or like integrations with existing systems? A lot of our products, they're not just standalone. They need to connect with other APIs, our internal databases, our existing customer data. Does it generate clean code that our engineers can then easily take over and maintain? Because that's a huge thing for us. Like the developer handoff is critical. I don't want to just create a bunch of technical debt with an AI generated prototype that my team then has to rewrite.
Yeah, really good points, Wade. And I actually hear that a lot from product teams. Um, to be completely honest with you, like the idea behind Lovable isn't to create something that's publicly facing necessarily or like the final product. Like generally, it does mean that development teams would have to rewrite the code base, but it's really just getting that MVP out as quickly as possible to make sure like does this make sense, and in turn, saving hundreds of thousands of developer costs to kind of like polish a product that might not even work.
So you're saying it's more for like an internal prototyping tool or like an MVP to validate ideas quickly, but not necessarily for production ready code? I mean, that's a pretty significant distinction. So the generated code isn't really intended for direct deployment or for our engineers to build upon. It's more of a throwaway essentially after validation.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose like you definitely can, and we have a ton of customers that have shipped live projects. But it does take a little bit of development knowledge. I don't want to sell you the dream here, Wade, and say it's production ready and you can ship to millions of customers straight from Lovable because I'd be lying to you. But in terms of kind of validating to a test group of 50 users, it's we've seen that done hundreds and hundreds of times.
Okay, so it's good for early stage validation, maybe for a small user group, but not for like scaling to our full customer base. I mean, that clarifies things, but it also means our engineering team would still need to rewrite everything for a production environment, which sort of diminishes some of the overall time and cost savings. I'm wondering if you have any examples of like specific types of internal tools or prototypes that product managers at other B2B SaaS companies have successfully built and validated using Lovable? And how quickly were they able to do that, from concept to something functional that they could put in front of users?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So we actually work with a company I'm sure you may have heard of called HubSpot. They were testing or they wanted to build the product team kind of had this ambition to build out um, an extension of the CRM. Naturally, that would have been a a year long process, if not more, and involving development team to push that out. They were able to put together kind of a very small cohort of trusted users and use Lovable to extend that functionality and kind of just get their ideas on like, hey, this would be really helpful. So that then when the development team built it, it wasn't kind of like a shot in the dark as to whether people would want it or not. And it turned out they actually did. They loved it, and now it's a fully rolled out feature.
HubSpot is a good example. So they used it to validate a CRM extension before committing full engineering resources. That
Mm.
makes sense for de-risking a large project. But what was the actual like time frame for them to go from concept to that usable prototype with Lovable? And how many non-technical team members were involved in that process on their side? Because empowering non-technical folks to contribute to functional mockups is one of our challenges. If, say, a product marketer or a UX designer could spin something up quickly, that would be pretty compelling.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, it was around 2 weeks and I think a couple of days for them to go from idea to actually the first user being onboarded. And there was one person from product and one person from the UX team.
Okay, 2 weeks to a first user and two people from product and UX. That's a pretty fast turnaround, I have to admit. And having non-technical people involved is interesting. How steep is the learning curve for someone who's never coded before to effectively use Lovable and build something meaningful?
Yeah,
Are we talking about like a few hours of training, or is it more involved than that? And
yeah,
what kind of support do you provide to ensure they can actually get value out of it without constant handholding?
yeah. Like I said, Wade, it's all completely natural human language. So somebody who's completely has no idea about coding or programming or anything at all of that nature can go in and just start building things out. One thing I'm curious about, Wade, if you don't mind me kind of prying a bit, are there any products or projects at the moment that maybe the project team have ambitions for and a little bit stuck behind on development resources. Of course, you don't have to share specific examples.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a few internal tools that are perpetually on the back burner because our core engineering team is always focused on our external B2B SaaS products. Things like um, better internal dashboards for sales operations or a streamlined content management tool for our marketing team. These are things that would improve efficiency, but they just never get prioritized for development. I'm also thinking about validating new features for our existing products without diverting critical resources. We often have ideas that seem good on paper, but building out even a basic version takes significant effort.
Yeah, yeah, I understand that way. Actually, I'm pleased you mentioned the dashboards. That's a really, really common use case that people traditionally would have had to have a development a development headcount for, but now they don't need to, and they can kind of build out whatever they need. Wade, we have kind of this onboarding program or like this kind of test program, and basically how it works is we'll put one of our engineers along with your team, completely for free with a month, just to kind of show you how Lovable works and work with you to build out that first project. I don't know if that sounds at all interesting, but would it be worth throwing some time on the calendar maybe Tuesday next week, maybe 2 p.m., 4 p.m., and I could just kind of get some brief ideas of what you want, and then if that sounds interesting, we could put that together.
Hmm. So you're offering like a free month with one of your engineers to help us build a project using Lovable. That's a pretty generous offer, I have to say.
Mm,
And having an engineer from your side to guide us through that first project would definitely alleviate some of my concerns about the learning curve and getting started effectively.
hmm
I mean, Tuesday next week at 2 p.m. or 4 p.m., I'd probably lean towards 2 p.m. if we're doing that. I'd want to ensure that if we do this, we pick a project that's genuinely useful for us and not just a demo for the sake of it. I'd also want to understand the commitment on our side. Like, how much time would my team need to dedicate to this during that month? And what happens after the month is over if we decide to continue or not?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, like we can, in terms of the project, we can discuss that and go through a few ideas on Tuesday at 2 p.m. In terms of the timing, I don't want to kind of promise the world to you, but most people are able to get something out. We're working alongside one of our team members within the first 2 or 3 hours, something of like really impressive quality. From then, we just kind of sit with you on Slack and can handhold you with anything, any extra features, whatever it might be. And then at the end of the month, if it's something that you don't want to continue with, it's absolutely no problem at all. We'll go our separate ways. So Wade, how about what I'll do? I'll send over that invite for Tuesday, and we can go through a bit more details then.
Okay, so a couple of hours initially for setup and a working prototype, then ongoing Slack support for the rest of the month. That sounds pretty reasonable, actually. And if it doesn't work out, no hard feelings. I mean, I appreciate that. Yeah, I think that would be fine. Go ahead and send over that invite for Tuesday, the 23rd at 2 p.m. That works for me. I'll make sure
Cool.
to block out some time and bring a couple of my team members who might be involved in some of those internal projects.
Yeah, good idea. Hey Wade, I'm going to send over the invite now. Is there anyone that I should add to the invite now? If you just want to let me know their name and email address, and I could just make it super easy for you and pop them into the invite as we speak.
You know what? Don't worry about it for now. I'll forward the invite to them once I get it. That'll
Yeah,
be easier than me trying to dig up their emails right now.
yeah.
So just send it to me, wade.cruz@innovateflow.com. Is that the email you have?
Okay, cool. So I didn't want to go through all the kind of demo booking rigmarole there in the interest of speed. But now what's going to happen is the call will be analyzed, and we'll get a bit of feedback. So I'll kind of show you what that looks like. I'm just going to pause while that comes through. Cool. So we got 666 XP for that call. You get a bit of feedback, performance summary, um, section review. So nearly perfect. The only thing that I missed out was I didn't do research on them, which is absolutely true. Everything was perfect in here. This is good. Interest generation was good. Meeting booking 4 out of 4. Boom. Objections were all handled. I'll just give you an example of kind of what that looks like. So um, here's what the prospect said, the objection, here's what I said, here's some feedback, and like here's an alternative response that I could say if I wanted some more inspiration, or of course if I didn't manage to handle that objection, I would equally get a response as well that I can use. I can go ahead and view the transcript if I want. I can download the recording if I wanted to share it with team members. And that's that, a demo booked for Lovable.